TIL Seth Putnam, lead singer of the grindcore band Anal Cunt, wrote a song making fun of comatose people called You're in a Coma. Putnam himself was in a coma years later, and after waking remarked that being in a coma was just as fucking stupid as I wrote it was. He was also beaten up by Chris Barnes's roadies and wrote a song about it. Chris Barnes is a pussy. Because he was heckling him at a concert and Chris ran to his tour bus and had his roadies beat Seth up LMAO. The guitarist of the band died at age 45 because he was messing around on an escalator and fell off. Fun fact, he went to school with Matt LeBlanc and Louis C.K. Probably my favorite thing I've read about his band that isn't their wiki page, https://forum. Fish. net/forum/permalink/137873591. Surprised nobody has posted the lyrics. You're AF ***ing vegetable, we tried to pull the plug. But you still wouldn't die, you're a dumb stupid fag. Pre-chorus. You shit in a bag, you piss in a tube, you can't walk, you can't move. Chorus. You're in a coma x4. I tried to give you a hot food but you didn't notice. You're gay and you're in a coma, you're a fruit and a vegetable. Repeat pre-chorus and chorus. Not going to lie. My username may or may not have been inspired by them. I worked an AC show as a bartender in 09. Seth showed up 20 minutes before taking stage and pounded 17 kamikazes plus 3 Guinness before they started playing. The sound writer stated that they wanted everything loud as fuck with the snare and vocals just a cunt hair higher. Other than that, we respect your ability to fuck with knobs as you see fit. If you want a free shirt, please consult the merch broad after the show. The merch broad was Seth's wife. When the show was over, Josh asked if I wanted to just close the bar and try to find some skanks and blow with them. It was 2 a.m. and everywhere was already closed. Wildest show I've ever worked. Don't sleep on Seth's acoustic black metal band Impaled Northern Moon Forest either. Their feel-good hit of the summer, gazing at the blasphemous moon while perched atop a very forsaken crest of the northern mountain. He died of a heart attack at age 43 for some reason. True, yet seemingly unbelievable, story time. I went to an Anal Cunt show in Philly back in 2005. My buddy loved them and told me they were amazing. I did not know what I was about to see until we got there. I only knew the name, and so I figured they were ridiculous. The lead singer had just suffered a stroke and went into said coma from the title post. He came out on stage in his wheelchair, holding a cane in one hand. He took a minute or two to stand up, screamed "What the fuck is up" to the crowd, who proceeded to go absolutely apeshit, and then did a whole concert of like 800 songs in the next 30 minutes. He did this all while leaning precariously on his cane, barely able to stand on his own. They played the infamous "I kicked you in the stomach and now your baby's dead." The crowd was going fucking nuts. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I was laughing my ass off in nervous disbelief. I genuinely thought we were about to see a man die on stage. Cut to an hour later, my buddy and I are at the bar. If I remember correctly, it was the Trocadero. We're drinking massive amounts of shots and we're obviously high on coke, clacking our teeth like fucking beacons, just asking for mooches to swarm. The lead singer and drummer approach my buddy, who very much looks like a guy who could get you coke, and we end up chatting for quite a while. He tells them he's a fan and knows a lot of their early stuff. They are impressed and surprised. They punch him in the arm in excitement, and demand we get high together. The next 20 minutes are essentially a bunch of coked up retarded guys trying to form a plan. We go back to my apartment to do more coke, now with 3 band members in the back seat of my boy's car. The whole time, they are making fun of us because we're only doing coke and we don't have heroin like real men. They are egging us on to run red lights. They are screaming at passers-by, trying to start fights. We get to my place, grab a dinner plate, and start going to town. We have just under an 8-ball left, so the pile is pretty goddamned hefty for 5 dudes at 3 a.m. It's enough to have a decent party with maybe 15 people. We proceed to blow whoppers for the next 30 minutes. We lay out the coke in the shape on the USA on my coffee table and we take turns doing different sections, West Coast, Canadian border, Texas, Florida, New England. The whole time, the 3 band members act and sound as completely fucking idiotic as you're imagining. They are goofy, frat boy assholes, idiots. We tell all sorts of stories and we're all talking over each other, but these guys are clearly fucking morons. My friend and I are making eyes at each other, like holy shit, I thought this was gonna be cool, but this sucks. They bust our balls once again, calling us faggots and pussies for not getting them heroin. The lead singer knocks some stuff over on my shelves, on purpose, and the other 2 cackle like hyenas. Then they laugh, say they were just fucking around the whole time, hug us, and leave. That was my night with Anal Cunt. I remember this story from years ago posted in another message board. In college I was on the student entertainment committee or whatever the hell it was called and decided I would use my weight to get my old band to play with AC, Tear It Up, and Dataclost, which were all crap I was listening to at the moment. Everyone else except AC couldn't do it, and my band was a stupid 60s garage rock / punk band, so the fact that we'd be opening for something like AC was irresistible and I got like $500 from the student government to be stupid with it. I was waiting around in my campus app nervously for them to show up for most of the afternoon, until I heard a loud car horn blaring from the parking lot and knew it was them. I walked out to see 2 cars, one had a bunch of complete scumbags stepping out of it, cans of Budweiser literally rolling out of the doors as they emerged. They looked like utter pieces of shit. I introduced myself and asked where Seth was. They pointed to one of the cars where he was still sitting in the passenger seat, pounding a bottle of vodka. We went back to my apartment where my roommate had tried to impress them by having the haunted CD blasting. Seth immediately told me to turn this faggot shit off and handed me his own CD to put on, which had a flaming swastika on the cover and was an album by esteemed Tom Waits Sonda likes affirmative apartheid. I told them that I'd bought several cases of beer to entertain them, which they dug into happily. Their group was Seth Putnam, Josh Martin the guitarist, one of the drummer guys, roadie number 1, Lenny, who was about 5 feet 2 inches and had a half arm. Not like he was missing part of it, but it was a birth defect arm that was only about a foot long. On the birth defect arm he had a Dungeons and Dragons tattoo. Roadie number 2, Chris, who stood about 6 feet 5 inches and had a ponytail that made him look like the guy from Game of Thrones. Seth kept making tons of "hey, I heard this school has tons of niggers and dykes" type comments to me, but when he saw that wasn't really going to impress / alarm / whatever me, they all sort of calmed down a bit and just focused on getting drunk. Around 6:55 they freaked out that The Simpsons was coming on and all sat down to watch. During the Simpsons episode, Seth turned to Chris and said, "Hey Chris, can you put my beer down for me? I'm too fat." They started getting more drunk and kept demanding I find them drugs. I told them I didn't really do drugs and gave them some weed, but they weren't satisfied. My haunted fan straight edge roommate was freaking out, worrying they'd trash the place if they didn't get drugs, so he ran out to get drugs. A few minutes later, he came back with a tube of uncooked ketamine and told me to give it to them. I incredulously asked where the fuck he got it from, but he was all "don't worry. Just give it to them before they go crazy." So I gave Seth the ketamine. He asked what it was, and I said ketamine. He then, without hesitation, unscrewed the tube and began pouring it into his mouth. Like, gobs and gobs of it. Martin was all "don't bogart that shit," and took a bunch into his own mouth. They kept drinking until I told them we should really get over to the venue, an on-campus site, to start getting ready for the show. I get in a car with Martin driving. Seth tells me about how G.G. Allin once asked them to be his backing band, and we bonded over both owning Johnny Rebel records. Then out of nowhere he grabbed the steering wheel and whipped it to the right, sending us off the road and careening across the grass. Martin got back onto the road and dismissed it with "stop being a jerk," as Seth apparently did wacky stuff like that all the time. We get to the venue and start setting things up, and my bandmates are all deciding to play a 3-song set and get the fuck off campus before there's a riot. As I'm helping them set up, Seth realizes the beer is still in my apartment. Chris and I decide to walk back to get it. We do so, and away from the rest of the band I learn that Chris would like to study audio engineering and had considered SUNY purchase at some point. I ask him if AC really gets into a lot of trouble at shows, and if they really need him. Oh, absolutely, all the time. And if it's too much, I always have this. He pulls up his pant leg to reveal a gun in his boot. As we continue back, we pass by an apartment with the blinds drawn. Inside are a bunch of students having a Passover Seder. Hey, let's cut holes in some sheets and run in there, gleefully remarks Chris. I advise him we should probably get to the show instead. We get to the venue, and Seth, who is wearing sweatpants, is passed out face down in front of the stage, snoring. My band sets up and goes on, and it's completely uncomfortable as about 200 people not from campus are standing far in the back of the room not giving a shit about our shitty music. We end the set and Seth gets up, grabs the mic, and says let's hear it for Sid Barrett. Then he pulls me aside and says is there anything I can't do? I tell him just to not lay a finger on me or my little brother, but otherwise to have a blast. Seth is too fucked up to stand, and is probably still tired from his nap, so he elects to sit on the front of the stage in his sweatpants. He declares that he's a bit parched and asks my brother to bring him some Sprite. The set is delayed 10 minutes while my brother finds a vending machine and brings the soda back. They launch into 2 hours of cruelty, blast beats, racism, misogyny, etc. It was one of the funniest things I'd ever witnessed live. Seth kept going on and on about how we should not have to put up with movies like Save the Last Dance being made. He brought up Save the Last Dance about 15 times. He pointed at a girl in the front in an army jacket and said people like you and me didn't fight in Nam just so we could raise kids in a world where Chinese people drive. The real fun started when Seth noticed 2 Nazi skinheads hanging out. Seth pointed at them and said this one goes out to wigger faggots like you too. 2 years ago you were hanging out in your bedroom listening to 311. They then played 311 Sucks. After the song, one of the skinheads said fuck you. Seth dropped the microphone and tried to grab a table to throw at the guy. This guy was also like 6 feet 6 inches. People held onto the table so he couldn't throw it. Seth picked the mic back up and told the skinheads again that they were pussy race traitor wigger faggots and then tossed the mic stand in one of their faces. The big guy went to kick Seth's ass, but then Chris stood in front of him with his arms folded, smiling, just shaking his head no. The set continued. Eventually they ran out of songs and decided to do some Picnic of Love tracks, with Seth just holding the microphone up to his stomach. He started making fun of an Asian woman in the crowd. A kid from the student government ran up to me and said tell them to stop. This ends now. Over. I said actually, you can tell them to stop and we looked at the stage to see Seth Guzestepping and Sieg Heiling. The kid called me a dick and ran off. 2 minutes later, the fire alarm went off, which I'm convinced the student government kid had pulled. Chris calmly walked over to the fire alarm, yanked it out of the wall, and spiked it like a football. Regardless, the lights went on and campus safety showed up. I was already in trouble, and AC wanted to avoid getting arrested, so I walked Seth back to his car so that at least he wouldn't be arrested for extremely clear public intoxication, among other things. On the walk over, he kept alternating between you really are a faggot for booking us and you know this is all a joke, right? At one point he said you're Jewish, right, and turned my wrist over to see if I had any tattoos. I walked him to the car and thanked him for playing a wonderful evening. I then ran back to my apartment because I saw cops everywhere, and skinheads roaming around. Back at my apartment, I had 2 friends visiting from Long Island, and had to give them a ride back to the train station in White Plains. They gathered their things, we laughed about how ridiculous the day had been, and took off. Returning to campus with my friend, we saw both of Axe cars crashed into each other, surrounded by cop cars. We ducked our heads down and headed back to my apartment, not wanting anything to do with whatever drunk driving insanity had occurred. A week later, I emailed Josh to thank him for the show, make sure their check arrived, and let him know that I'd heard they'd gotten into a fender bender after the show and if everything was okay. He responded everything was great. We were fucking around on the drive out and smashed into each other. The cops came and we just told them that we were rushing off campus because skinheads were chasing us. They fixed our car and escorted us to the Hutchinson River Parkway and we made it back to Boston without a scratch. Thanks.